Well, hello there. Welcome to Real WW Talk. I'm Erin.
I'm Candice.
And I'm Rikki.
Ladies, it's so good to see your faces. I so missed you
We
last
missed
week.
you.
Yeah.
I missed the conversation, but I was listening to it. I went for my walk the other morning and I pulled up the podcast and listened to the conversation and just loved listening in. It was so good.
You got to have a listener perspective to it.
I totally did. And it was fabulous. I loved it. I love the conversation of like slips into slides and how to stop them, because to me, it was like, oh, yes, this is what I need right now, because heading into Christmas, for sure, this is the prime, like sliding into the new year and going, I'm just going to give up.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll start fresh on January 1. So
I still want to do that. I admit it. I still am struggling, even though we talked about it. I'm like, what did I say last week? Okay, let me remember.
Well, let's dive into it. Let's talk about how last week was, because I mean, you guys talked about the slip into the slide thing and not turning it in. Did it stop there, or did you slide the rest of the week?
I didn't have the best week last week. So I did a lot of talking, but the scale was up, and it's been the first time it was up since September. So that was a little tough to handle. Now
Could we just stop for a second though? It's the first time that it's been up since September. So that means you have had what, 8 weeks in a row of a loss?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
So very, very
Amazing.
proud of that. But I was more proud, and I shared this at the meeting, that I knew the scale was inching up. And I did not revert back to some unhealthy behaviors that I used to do to try to control the scale. So I was super proud of that, because I didn't over exercise before I stepped on the scale. I didn't make any excuses. I didn't run. All of that was big for me. But I was not making the choices to rein it in when I had the opportunity to. And I was a little disappointed in that, because we had just talked about it, and it shows you that sometimes you can talk and really mean it, but the implementation is a little more difficult. So
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think in retrospect, for me, I had a huge loss last week. And this week I had a large gain, a larger gain than I have ever remember having, and it completely knocked out the large loss that I had the week before. And something you said, Erin, resonated with me, because after our meeting, we were chatting in the parking lot as usual, and you mentioned your successful week, but you said, I don't lose back to back. Like you just said, I don't do it. And to me, as a friend, I'm like, hey, don't speak that way. Don't be, Debbie Downer, trying to encourage you. But I think I have that ingrained in me. I think there was some fear and some sabotage of seeing such a huge loss. And I was on the cusp of a new decade in the prior week. And I don't know. I think there's some comfort in just being the same. I've been in this kind of victim, like, woe is me mentality for so long, of just waiting to see the change. And I had this opportunity to keep going and have, a larger week, 2 weeks in a row, like a large loss within 2 weeks. And I blew it.
well, I was also I had lost 20 pounds. Yeah, I hit the 20-pound mark. So I relate to you, Rikki. I think there could be something about those milestones, or seeing that progress, and it's becoming tangible and real, and wanting to revert back to, wait a second, let me go back to what I know. Let me go back to those behaviors that make me feel comfortable, not happy, but comfortable, because it's even though it's a good thing, it's sometimes scary to make change.
How much do you think of it is making change versus making change right now at the holiday, and knowing that January 1 is around the corner?
That's a piece to it, Erin, because as much as we want to, you want so badly not to be that person who's a resolutioner. Not that resolutioners are bad, but knowing that we've had the opportunity to make December really, really important, and to really make change, it's hard to not want to sometimes give into that temptation to just wait till January 1st and eat all the cookies and all
Yeah.
of the stuff without any type of accountability.
Mhm.
That's a
Yeah,
good
I
point.
find myself still not wanting to say no. As many times as we talked about it, my inner 5-year-old is still holding on to, I want to say yes to everything. And, this time of year, there's a lot of opportunities to say yes to junk food, between a snack cart that's going around the school or donuts that are coming in, pizza day. All these things are legitimate things that are on my calendar within the next 2 weeks. So, and I don't want to say no. I don't want to be the only one who's not doing it. And it's not even just a missing out thing. I legitimately enjoy these things.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm interested, Erin, because you had a good week. And when I say good on the scale,
Yeah.
I don't, but have you found that kind of the temptations of the holidays are hitting you, or are you?
Um, so temptation for the holidays is different for me because I'm forced into not enjoying them. Now, that doesn't mean I can't find my way into making my own gluten-free, dairy-free treats. I will say that there becomes sometimes frustration for me because I see all of the amazing things that everybody's enjoying and all of the peppermint things and, all of the special candies. And it can get super frustrating. And I want to go find my own, gluten-free, dairy-free, nut-free brownie kind of thing, and then just completely indulge in it. But I haven't yet. And one of the things that I've been trying to think about are some of the conversations that we've had before, and that, you know, uh, talking about being a woman of my word kind of thing. Like we talked about at the one meeting where I said, like, your coworkers don't believe you when you show up and you say, I'm doing this. And then a week later, you face first into the cake kind of a thing. Right. And so I've been thinking about myself at Christmas and what am I saying versus what am I doing when it comes to all of the Christmas goodies. And so I've just been trying to really think on that side of it. And then when it's coming to all of the treats, like I told my mom not to make, she was going to make these gluten-free cupcakes, and then she was going to make these gluten-free cookies, and then she was going to make something else. And I said, no, don't make any of it. Because if you do, it all needs to be eaten. And therefore I will eat it all. And I'm not at a place where I want to eat it all. And I don't want that. I don't want that temptation around.
Look at that. That's
I know,
that.
right.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
Right?
Because I would not. And
Right?
that's a if somebody was offering to make cupcakes, I wouldn't be like, no,
No.
don't
You
do that.
know,
But that shows a lot of growth, Erin.
it is.
Congratulations.
If this was last year, I probably would have said, we'll make it all and then we'll put some in the freezer, knowing nothing's going to make it in the freezer. And honestly, I just think it's because right now I've got some hope. I've got some hope that I didn't have before, and it's the only hope that comes with consistent actions, honestly. Like Erin for me 3-4 months ago has been digging in and doing hard work. She hasn't been 100% consistent, but I would say she's 65 to 70% consistent. And it's a really great thing to go put on a pair of pants in an emergency funeral situation, my dress pants from 3 years ago, and be able to button them up. And then last night I had a speaking engagement, and I pulled out with COVID, we're not wearing the fancy clothes anymore. And so I put on the sweater that I wore at the funeral, and the sweater fit. It actually fit a little bit better than it did 3 weeks ago.
And you
And
also traveled in between that.
and
Like,
I
that's
traveled, and you
incredible.
guys, the plane that we got on, it was Southwest, and it was one of the older planes, and it was the seats that were actually a little bit smaller than the others. So that was a little eye-opening. That was like, "Oh my hips are touching someone else's." And her hips were touching mine, and his hips were touching mine. We were all very close on the plane. But it was better than it would have been, you know, a couple months ago. And then we got a plane that had a little bit more of the room on it, and I felt a little bit more confident. But I feel like right now I'm at a place where it's not that I don't want to screw this up. I don't mean it like that, right? But it's like what's worth it?
But
What's worth it?
Erin, I'm so glad you said that, because I'll tell you, just sharing my fear, I've been there for the past 2 months, and so to have a week where I kinda lost that is a
Yeah.
little scary because I too had been getting addicted. That's the only word I know to use. Addicted to the feeling of the consistency
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
of being in control, and then to see how quickly it can
It
go.
can roll.
It was
Mhm.
just a reminder of like, "Oh my gosh," like never I told you one thing our old coach, Noelle, said to me, and I always bring this up, is when I was getting a little too confident, she said, "Be careful."
Yep.
She said, "Be careful," because I was
Yep.
like, "I'm down 30 pounds, and this is great." And that's how I felt. I'm down 20 pounds, and it's been 2 months, and I haven't had a lot gain. And I feel like this week was a humbling week to say,
Mhm.
"Be careful. It's
Yeah.
always on the other side."
Mhm.
Yeah.
The
And so,
addiction.
like, on this humbling week for you, what's your mentality right now? Is it humbling the week, like, I'm just gonna go slide further into that? Or is it like, okay, this was 1 week out of 8 weeks. I've had 8 weeks of success. So if I'm looking at this as a pie chart, it's this little bit. So I shouldn't be focused on this bit because I've got, all of this over here.
I think that that's where I'd like to be, but I don't know if it's a human condition that we tend to focus on the negative. It's kinda
Yeah.
like if you get
Mhm.
10 wonderful comments and one person tells you that they hate your shirt, all of a sudden, the 9 comments that
Right.
said the 10 comments that said it was great, like, don't matter.
Yep.
So,
Mhm.
I'm trying really hard to focus and to say it was just this, let me brush it off, but I will admit that I'm white knuckling it. It's
Mhm.
kind of I need a few days of wins.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I've had about a 50-70% day each day where it's like I kinda am making better
Mhm.
decisions, but then I kinda make a decision that is back and puts me
Yeah.
back down, so I'm not quite there
Mhm.
yet. I'm about 50-50.
And I find it so hard because I can relate to that too, Candice. And there's the routines that got us to Weight Watchers in the first place, to WW in the first place, are so strong. And those patterns that we established unintentionally when we gained the weight, I think there's some comfort in that and some, it's the devil, And I think sometimes that creeps up on us easier than the new habits that we're establishing.
Mhm. One of the things that I was thinking about was, we're at the beginning of a new month, right? And, pretty soon January 1's around the corner from us. And we've just had this rollout of the new WW plan, right? We're super on fire. We're super committed for the first 2 weeks of the plan. And now we're around week 3, week 4,
Mhm.
and our wheels are already falling off, right? Like,
Mhm.
It
and
was a
and to
good
me,
run. It was a good run,
it
Erin.
was a
You
great
tried
run.
hard.
It was a great 2 weeks.
That's not even as long as the New Year's resolution last.
Right. Which to me goes to show, like, we're always searching for motivation, right? We're always searching for that next thing that will make it click,
Mhm.
whereas it's really discipline and consistency is the click,
Mhm.
and that comes from us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's within us. No one else, nothing else can generate that but us. And why is it that I keep failing myself?
Hmm.
Why don't I give myself the best shot at this?
There's some things that are just so automatic. I don't know if you guys find this too, but it's beyond impulsivity. It feels like going in the staff lounge and there's a slice of cake. Like, yes, there was a thought that went into my head that, I could walk away. But the automatic thing for me is like, well, that's what I've done in the past. I'm going to have this slice of cake. And it's so, at this point right now, it's been challenging to say no and also to say no multiple times because honestly I did say no the first couple times, but in the back of my mind I was like, well, it'll be here later. And having to say no over and over again sometimes wears at me. And
Mhm.
can you guys relate to that?
Yeah.
I think it's what Erin kinda shared from that book, our book that we kinda were really gung ho about. What was it called? Atomic Habits?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right here on my
There we
desk.
go.
There it
According to
is.
Atomic Habits, not only do we have to change our, the what we do, but it's our identity because that's
Mm.
what I'm hearing you say, Rikki. You know,
Mhm.
it's I don't identify. I mean, I'm pretend. It's almost like I feel like I'm an imposter
Mm.
when I'm trying to go into this lounge and I'm like, I don't want any chocolate. Or like when I heard Erin say to her mother, "Mother, no cupcakes, no gluten cupcakes, no gluten-free
Mhm.
cupcakes." That feels like an imposter. It doesn't feel like something that I actually am and
Yes.
what I identify as. So it's almost
Mhm.
having to be willing to change my identity or how I feel about how I view myself. Like I really am a person. I'm not playing a game. This
Mhm.
is not me trying to um pretend I legitimately am this person. I think we still feel like we're playing like it's like
Mhm.
a joke a little bit.
Mhm.
Let me read you this because I literally opened up right to this section, okay? Because Candace, this backs up everything that you just said. Each habit not only gets results, but also teaches you something far more important, to trust yourself. You start to believe you can actually accomplish these things. And when the votes mount up and the evidence begins to change, the story you tell yourself begins to change as well. Every time you choose to perform a habit, good or bad, it's a vote for that identity. The good
Mm.
news is you don't need to be perfect, because in any election, there are going to be votes for both sides. You don't need a unanimous vote to win an election. You just need a majority. So it doesn't matter if you cast a few votes for a bad behavior or an unproductive habit. Your goal is simply to win the majority of the time. New identities require new evidence. If you keep casting the same votes you've always cast, you're going to get the same results you've always had. If nothing changes, nothing's going to change. It's a simple two-step process. Decide the type of person you want to be, prove it to yourself with small wins.
And I think
Wow.
that's so powerful. And the only thing I would add to it is also saying it's okay that there might be some fear
Mhm.
associated with a new identity because when you're trying to maintain homeostasis or who you are, there's comfort and familiarity.
Mhm.
So a new identity is new.
Yeah.
And it's something that even if it's better for you, it's just not something that we've done a lot. So I
Yeah.
think that until it becomes your norm, it can be tough to handle, you
Let
know?
me, let me ask you something. What do you guys want? If you think about yourself as a new identity, what does that new identity look like for you?
Mm.
I don't know, I feel like it's very extreme for me. Like, that's probably why I'm afraid of it a little bit. I think that I don't view the identity that even though for the past 8 weeks, I've been very not extreme. I view healthy Candice, which is the identity I want. You know, I am a healthy person as somebody who doesn't ever give in. You know, what you just said, Erin, that example you gave of you don't have to do it all the time. I'm like, yes, but I don't know.
Right.
I think I have this extreme thought of
Yeah.
what a healthy Candice is.
Right. Your
Mhm.
idea, it sounds like, of a healthy Candace is perfection, which is what we've been trying to undo.
Mm.
Right.
Ding, ding, ding,
Right.
ding, ding, ding.
Okay. So if you let's take perfection out of this, because we know that that's not attainable by anybody, anywhere, anytime, any place. If you think about that future version of yourself, not in terms of perfection, but just how you want to live, how I want to be, what does that what does that feel like to you? I can tell you, if it helps, I can tell you, like, for me, it is I'm comfortable in my skin. I am comfortable in who I am. I'm comfortable and confident in the clothes that I'm wearing. I don't have multiple layers of clothes in different sizes. I have one size, and I can go into my closet and pull a size out, and it fits. There's no
Mm,
skinny day. There's no fat day,
Mm.
and I'm not thinking about my weight all the time. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to eat all the time, in terms of there's a brownie on a counter and I'm just sitting here thinking about it over and over and over in my mind. Like, I can't get a
Mm.
brownie out of my mind, you know?
Freedom.
Like, yeah, I want freedom of choice in the food and my thoughts around that. And I
Mhm.
I feel like I've had that, and then, COVID and depression and a whole bunch of other stuff kind of brought that back, and I lost that person, and I feel like I'm getting back to her again.
Mm.
And I'd say all of what you said, Erin. I think that's a wonderful description of that, and also adding proud. Like that's
Mhm.
what I've been feeling. It's just proud of me
Mhm.
instead of disappointed and
Yeah.
negative.
Yeah.
Just being happy with myself and with my choices and feeling confident, and Rikki, like you said, free.
Mhm.
I think there's a
Yeah.
freedom to adopting and to adapting to the lifestyle that cannot be understated.
Mhm. I know, this reminds me a little bit of an activity my therapist had me do a while ago, and it was saying a statement of what I believed about myself now and reframing it. And a couple of examples that come to mind are, for me, I've always felt like my identity is slow. I'm always hyper aware of if I'm walking in the mall or, like that I don't take as big of steps as other people and I'm slow and people notice that I'm overweight and it's because I'm overweight. But it's just I've always had that pace even if I was in a more fit even when I was more fit. So something I did in that activity was to say, I move at a fit pace instead of saying I move at a slow pace. So for me, it's changing those statements that are negative that I believe about myself now, um, and reframing them into what I am and what I will be, even if I don't believe it right now. And I think that's the challenge is, kind of like the author is saying, in Atomic Habits. He's not saying, well, you have to believe it first. The action comes first. So reminding myself of that statement, of those positive statements, and flipping the coin on the negative ones, I think is what reminds me of where I want to be.
Mhm.
And I do think that having the accountability partners to remind you when you don't remember. Like, I
Mhm.
think that it's easy to recall things that can be negative, but to say, you've had weeks where you weren't really on track the first few days, and then you turned it around midweek, and then you had a loss or you were really proud. You do know that you've done that a couple times now. So to say that that doesn't work isn't true. You can't always trust your thoughts. Trust the action.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Trust sometimes just put your thoughts to the side, and that's something, Rikki, you and I talked about last week. Our thoughts
Mhm.
sometimes just cannot be trusted.
Mhm.
And I'm encouraged by you, Erin, and to see and hear about all of your wins and to hear how it's making you feel, when you had lost it, when you talked about with the depression and the different things and how
Mhm.
it felt to lose it and then to get it back. I think that
Mhm.
that's also a testimony for those to say it doesn't mean that if you did lose it that it's gone forever.
Mhm.
Right.
There's always an opportunity to change it around, to
Yep.
to come back.
Yeah. I think even just this time around, I mean, it's been, for all of us, this is like this slow, it is a slow process. But one of the messages that I've just internalized that was, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago is when WW was talking about really focusing on the mental health side
Mhm.
of things and about creating the new brain pathways. Right? I mean, I always feel like I've already got like I'm set. We've been doing this long enough. I know all the things. I know all the tricks. I know all the habits. I've tricked myself into everything and none of it works, right?
Mhm.
And the only thing that works is discipline and consistency. At the end of the day, I want something flashy, I want something shiny, but that doesn't do it. It's literally just taking that next step that we talk about. It's about being true and consistent in tracking the water. It's being true and consistent that every day I make the appointment with myself to go do exercise. And funny thing is, like, I've kept on those two things. The food is the one that's always been like up and down for me. But I find that if I have those two, it lessens the mind meld of food is the only way that I can explain it, like, because I feel like I've done all of this other work. Why am I sabotaging myself over here with this? Why are you working so hard to undo all the work that you're doing? And that's
Mhm.
like the brain pathway thing of like, I've got to reshape my brain again
Mhm.
into something different.
And reminding yourself of those areas where, like you said, where you are consistent and you've made it a non-negotiable.
Mhm.
To my credit, I haven't lost a step bet. I'm just saying. Like,
No.
it doesn't matter what I'm doing with my food. I find a way to get my steps in. I don't care if I'm watching 5 movies and marching in place. I get
Mhm.
my steps in. But that's because I value not losing the money. I am proud of my consistency and I make it a non-negotiable. And
Mhm.
it's become a part of my identity that I win step bets.
Yes.
Mhm.
So when someone says, "Well, I hope you get your steps," I'm like, "What do you mean hope? I will. I don't
Right?
lose step
Right.
bets. This is
It's in
not a
my
thing."
power.
So you just said something that I think was really powerful there. And you said, it's what I value.
Mm,
And I feel like there's a key there that we're not valuing ourselves.
mm.
Well, dagger to the heart. Okay. I knew you were gonna go there. I shouldn't have said the V
You
word.
knew
Okay.
it. You knew
But
I would.
there's another part to this too. I was thinking about, what you were saying before, Erin, and there is a serious, I don't have the scientific research up now, but sugar addiction is real. And I know that for me, that is my biggest challenge. It is so hard for me to say no to sweets. And there have been times where I've decreased it, but it brings you back so easily and it's in everything. So I think we do have to give ourselves credit and acknowledge that, there probably is a way to taper off of certain things. And there are, for some people, things that we need to limit more and be hyper aware of so that we can, you know,
Because
face it.
sometimes the struggle really isn't a struggle. It is obviously a struggle,
Hmm.
but these are chemical reactions that are happening because of certain foods. Like I remember seeing something like Doritos. They intentionally put flavor enhancers in there to trick your brain to make you
Hmm.
want more.
Hmm.
Cheese actually has chemical compounds naturally occurring in it that make you want more cheese.
Hmm.
Right? And so sometimes it can be a food thing. Like, yeah, if we're eating a lot of sugar, especially this time of year, right? Like that just keeps the addiction up. But I do want to go back to that piece about the value on ourselves, right? Because at the end of the day, we're the ones who are completely in control, right?
Hmm.
We're completely in control of ourselves, how we see ourselves, how we want others to see us, what image we're projecting to them, what we're projecting to ourselves, and how are we showing value to ourselves? And we can't expect other people to value us and value our word if we're not doing it first, because we've got to lay the path for them to follow for us.
I think that's so true. And I think that even if we're struggling with it, because, I like to say that I value myself every single day because that sounds like the right thing to say. And if
Hmm.
I didn't, somebody would say, "Well, why don't you? You're so amazing." All of the nice things. But
Hmm.
until I feel that, I do think that there is a fake it until you make it.
Hmm.
That
Mhm.
we've talked about SIAT and others, but in whatever that we do, it's the action that sometimes helps to bring forth that feeling. Because I
Hmm.
felt that I valued myself more in the past. And I don't want to isolate this week. See, I'm giving this week too much credit and too much
Right.
Mm.
power. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're off. You were on and
Right.
you're off. That's not, see, I don't want to do that
Yeah.
because then it's like now I have to climb out of some hole when really it's just a slip.
Right.
Mhm.
And it doesn't change the value that I've shown myself with consistency and with discipline.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's just having to remind myself that perfection isn't required for me to have value. That's
Mhm.
my challenge is
Yeah.
tying the perfection because of how I was raised. There was a perfectionist requirement, when I was growing up. Like I had to, in order for me to get praise, I had to do everything right. And if I didn't, it was a problem,
Right.
Mhm.
if
And we
you didn't get all
internalized
A's.
that and went, therefore we are trash.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like if I got a B on my report card, other people could get, a
Right.
B and I'd be proud of them. But if I didn't
Mhm.
get all A's, it was
Mm-mm.
it was a problem.
How does it make you feel when you hear that part from Atomic Habits where like every vote is cast, and in order to even become president, you don't have to have 100% of the votes. You
I
just have to have
love
the
that.
majority.
I
Mhm.
love that, but okay, because I've been president of certain social groups, I did always focus on when I ran and 2 people didn't vote for me, and I obsessed with who were they
Right.
and went
Mm.
through the whole list. Why did I care? I mean, that's a really wonderful number. I was like, "Who were the 2 and what were their reasons? What who" So I've always struggled with that, but I don't choose that anymore
Mhm.
because there really is no point because
Yeah.
you can get where you need to go without
Mhm.
perfection.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
And I think that those are really good points. And just continuing about valuing and what we value, I think it's important that we're recognizing that in the past we've identified these negative habits as valuing ourselves. Me taking a week off from the gym because I want to. I'm valuing myself because I'm putting myself first. That was a lie. Or me saying, I can have this whole box of cookies. I'm valuing myself. This is what I want right now. We are also unlearning those habits and reestablishing what the truth is.
Yeah.
So how do we learn to value the plan again? So that we can do the WW plan that has been rolled out and is so nice and so
Mhm.
wonderful. I'm just wondering because I really think it's been a wonderful tool. I really was excited about the new plan
Mhm.
and uh, I'm hoping to use that as a way to show the value that I feel for myself. And because
Mhm.
I just love that it's personalized. I really have
Yeah.
enjoyed that. Do you all feel like it's a tool that is working for you when you work it?
A
Has
hundred
that
percent.
Mhm.
yeah.
A
Yeah.
100%. I will tell you, like, my struggle has been, super high on eating all the vegetables, and I'm like, I was having my vegetable salad kind of a thing with my arugula and stuff, and I'm like, it's now, like, we just hit, like, some cold days, and I'm like, I do not want that for breakfast.
Mhm.
And I will tell you another piece too, for me, it always comes down to time. How am
Mm.
I valuing my time? What am I doing with my time? And, coming back from vacation and not having breakfast at my normal time. And now I'm off December 20th through the new year. So I've got like
Mhm.
2 solid weeks to do what I want. But right now it is crushed to get things done. And I'm working from home. And so the other day I didn't eat breakfast till 10 o'clock. And then this
Mm.
morning I didn't eat breakfast till 9 o'clock. And I'm like, no, I have to. I have to stop and I can't let the pressure that I'm feeling overwhelm my plan,
Mhm.
right? Because I'm giving work all of me, right? I'm showing up, I'm giving them 100% of me during my time. And I can take a break and I can go eat breakfast and it's the, put your oxygen mask on first kind of thing. It's I need to pour into me so that I can pour out to these other things because if I'm not stopping to drink my water and keep myself hydrated, I'm not stopping to eat breakfast, then I know that I'm actually operating at a little bit of a lower mental capacity and not able to give everything over to my job that I need to in this time.
And see, that's
Mhm.
how I feel about my exercise. Like
Yes.
when I am in the office, I sometimes feel guilty going to take a walk and taking those breaks that are allowed.
Mhm.
No, I actually operate more efficiently and I'm just in a better space when I do take a walk, when I do get in
Mhm.
my exercise in the morning, when I do all of those healthy habits and do those things. So, Erin, I definitely agree with you.
I
Mhm.
think that Candice, like back to your question about getting motivated about the plan again, the question that I probably want to ask is, so when the high wears off, when
Mhm.
the high of motivation wears off, what are you left with?
For me, I had to take a hard look at the first couple weeks and what I was doing and what could have changed. The good thing was that I was eating more vegetables, I was drinking more water. But looking at my points, I don't even think I had potatoes in the house and potatoes were zero. So with that information, I know some people took their, assessment again. I said, I think this is a decent reflection of the foods I like. I just didn't have it in the house. So this week I got potatoes. I got, a few more things that are 0 point for me. And I meal prepped. And I feel like for me, that was the best thing I could do to start over again, to say, I'm going to have fruits, vegetables, and 0 points foods around so that I can make better choices.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that that's this, that is a wonderful solution. One of the things I like that you said, Rikki, is it wasn't about changing your 0 point list. Cause I know that that's something that I've seen some people in our group struggle with on the Facebook group. They were talking about wanting to consistently change the
Mhm.
0 points, taking the assessment because it can give you a different range. And I think what we're talking about in this conversation, that it really doesn't matter honestly, at the end of the day, what's 0 points for you or what's not. Because if you're consistently going over your points, it doesn't matter what's 0 because I'm not operating within the confines
Right.
of the plan anyway. So I think it's more, what is it what do I value about the plan? What is it that it gives me? And I feel like staying within the boundaries that the program offers and using those things that promote the healthy habits, like a cup of non-starchy vegetables and walking and water, makes me feel good. And when I don't honor those boundaries, I don't feel good. So that's what I want to get back to.
And you know, something else that you're saying with that too is honoring the boundaries. Candice is also honoring the agreement. And when we agreed together as a team with the new plan that we were going to do it for 2 weeks.
And we did 2 weeks.
2 weeks, right? We held to our agreement by following the boundaries. But, and again, I think this is where where accountability, and as our one of our online meeting coaches, Layla, would say, our accountability buddies, right? Maybe where that comes into play, because we've made an agreement with somebody to honor these boundaries. And now we've loosed those 2 weeks, and now each of us are over here on our own, and none of us are agreeing to the agreements that we made.
We're like, look, you're trying to extend the 2 weeks. We went 14 days. Okay. It's time for a new agreement. How about we just agree for all of 2021 and 2022?
There we go.
See, that's too bite. That's too
I'm
big of a
trying
bite.
to give us not the out to say
For the next 3 weeks instead of 2.
How about we just get to the end of the year?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, should we agree to do that? Or
that would be helpful it's always helpful for me to know that I don't want to be the one who doesn't when the 3 of us say that we're going to. So sure.
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay. Right. Friends forever.
That's how you know it's real. We have to sing the song and put the hands in. Okay.
And if you're on the podcast, what you can't see is we did the old like hands in the center and like friends forever. Boom.
And then you have to move it up. And that's the way that you know that if you cannot give up on each other. So
no, that's our agreement.
We value the agreement.
Yes. No, okay, now here's what's kind of funky to me is we value the agreement that we're making to each other more than we value the agreement that we've made to our own selves.
She was going to do it, Rikki. I knew it. I knew she was going to be like, but we can't value ourselves. We just value. That's therapy level. Okay. I have to talk to my therapist about why I value you guys more than myself. Okay.
Wow.
You know, I want to put that on the docket for us though, when we look about the future versions of ourselves that we're trying to, work towards and with identity, because there are a lot of things. And that's something that I'm learning for myself. I feel like this year has been a year of learning boundaries. For sure. It's been learning boundaries. And if I can't even maintain my own boundaries here, how can I expect anyone else to respect a boundary that I'm going to put in place for them? And frankly, everybody knows that I'm terrible with boundaries, right? And so it's not that they're trying to take advantage of me, but they know that I say yes. And I'm having to learn how to say no so that I can give my best yes to things.
I think that's really great. I mean, that's very, very powerful. Very true. And I think, while I am joking about, us all doing it together, I'm for us doing it. But one thing that is true is I think we've all had accountability partners in the past while we at some point on this journey where you have a person and they fall off. If all of your hope and your desire for yourself is kind of you're putting in the hands of somebody else doing it as well, that's very dangerous.
Yes.
Because I will tell you that about 99.992% of all of my accountability partners at one point have either fallen off, they disappeared, and it affected my journey because I was like, well, where did they go? If they're not doing it, I'm not doing it, and that shouldn't be. My success and me treating myself well and valuing myself should have nothing to do with another person. Although I still want to keep our agreement for the end of the year. Okay. I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, I think we're working towards, getting to that point where we do have that honor the agreements we make to ourselves. But in the meantime, I think what we do is lean on each other. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think one thing that we have that benefits us is being honest with one another and saying, hey, where were you? Are you trying to hide? Are you, calling those things out of the dark, like we've talked about, the dark versus the things that we bring into the light. And I think knowing that we have that relationship helps because we can be honest with one another and, maybe learn in the process to call that out in ourselves.
But again, just not using it as the excuse to say, well, Erin didn't walk today, Rikki didn't get on the bike, so therefore I can't. Because they didn't, and I don't want to outshine them. So therefore, I'm not going to do any exercise. No,
I don't want to make.
I'm going to keep losing weight, even if you all don't. Like those are the things. It actually can be uncomfortable though if you're somebody falls off. But Rikki, your point is very, very true. We help each other kind of keep it in the light instead of keeping it in the darkness.
And I think, again, I don't know what it is about this discipline and consistency that I keep going back to is we have trust built with one another because we've been consistent with one another in terms of accountability and in terms of friendship. And the only way to get there to even where we are is time. So I think all of this a lot of this comes down to time in the plan, time doing the work. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but there will be one day when you look back on it and you go, oh yeah, I see that. But it's just putting in the time of doing the next right thing and doing it consistently. Which, Candice, you've been doing for 8 weeks and then had a slip up this past week. Rikki, you've been doing it as well. You had a really great week, the week before, and then it hit a bounce, this week. This week does not negate the previous weeks.
This week does not define my journey. It just does not. I was thinking of our fellow WW member, Jeanette. She just hit goal.
140 pounds.
140 pounds. And she was telling us her story. And she's had peaks and valleys. She's had it took her, it doesn't even really matter how long it took her. She kept at it. She didn't let slip ups. She didn't let non-perfect weeks become the end of the story. That was very, very encouraging for me to hear.
Yes. And one of the things that she said stuck with me all week and even inspired me to make a change that I'm planning on making. I didn't start it this week, but she said that once she had a large gain and then she had some tragedy strike. But when she was starting back up, she just changed her breakfast. Like the first thing she started with was saying, I'm going to eat something different for breakfast. I mean, for me, I was relating that to coffee. Like I'd put creamer in my coffee every morning. Could I taper that off? Could I do without it? And how much a difference would that make in a day, not only points wise, but not starting the day with sugar?
Because she said, I thought like this, I know exactly which part you're talking about. Because she said, I had a toxic relationship with peanut butter. And so she eliminated peanut butter from her regular breakfast. And now she has it Saturday morning. She goes home after the meeting and she measures out her peanut butter and has a peanut butter toast.
But my question is her journey or is her story any less inspiring? Depending on when she did it or how long it took or how the point is that she did it. And I think that was my biggest takeaway because I was focused for so long on it has to take me this long. It has to be a loss every week. It has to be perfect.
And 5 years later,
5 years later, and so my takeaway was sometimes you just keep going. You recognize the flaws in your thinking and you will eventually get there. She made those changes that we all discussed. She changed her breakfast. She stopped with the peanut butter. she got to goal.
Mhm.
We can do the same.
Yeah.
There's no difference.
I think that's a great note to go out on. Don't you agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Let's end Jeanette.
Hands in. Well, as always, it's good just to mull these things over with you ladies and just have good, deep conversations while we try and work to be the best versions of ourselves. Sometimes that includes conversations about the weight, and sometimes it includes conversations about the mind and how we feel about ourselves. And I'm glad I have you to kind of bounce this stuff off of.
Gee golly, you guys are the
Heart.
greatest. Hearts
Heart.
forever.
Heart.
Never afflicted.
I love it. Well, we wish you a great week. If you are, trying to figure out what life is going to look like for you through the end of the year, maybe I'll just ask you this question: is what's going to make you happy December 31st? When you wake up on January 1, are you going to feel defeated that you need to start over again? Or do you want to start January 1 on a high note going, okay, I'm proud of myself. I didn't do a perfect Christmas, but I did a good Christmas for me that maybe was better than before. And you're going to start the new year on a great note. So
Perfection not required.
bingo.
Not required.
What's going to make you happy when you wake up January 1? Figure it out, and you should go do that. You should do it. As always, you can find us over on the Real WW Talk Facebook group, Instagram, YouTube. Just search Real WW Talk. And of course, the podcast. If you're watching us, we go live every Monday night at 8 p.m. on Facebook and in YouTube. But then our podcast goes live Saturday mornings. And you can pop us in your pocket, go for a walk if you're trying to win a step bet like Candice, or, ride your Peloton like the girls, or the Peloton like me. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.